Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining the webinar today. My name is Michael Hansen, Program Manager with the Action Innovation Network. Action is a collaborative network of technology business incubators and other entrepreneurship support organizations located throughout the New England region. Our network supports startups developing technologies across a wide range of tech industry sectors, including life sciences, clean tech, robotics, marine technologies, and advanced materials. Our Plymouth Rock project provides a suite of resources for international startups that are interested in exploring this ecosystem as a place to grow their company in the US. A few items to review before we start the presentation. All attendees will have their audio and video muted. The presentation will be followed by question and answer at the end. If you have a question for Michelle, please click on chat and use the chat window to submit your question to the host anytime during the presentation. This webinar will be recorded and emailed to you, as well as being posted on the Action website for future viewing. Today's webinar is presented by Michelle Paul, Business Development Officer at Cummings Properties. Thank you, Michelle, for taking the time to join us and present today. We're looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you, Michael. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm going to share my screen first. I think, Michael, you need to give me rights to do that first. Okay. Okay, did that work? You see my screen? Okay, great. So thank you, Michael, for the introduction, and thank you for the participants on today's webinar. I'm Michelle Paul, and I'm the Business Development Officer for Cummings Properties. I spend most of my time talking to businesses that are looking to jump from an incubator setting or a corporate business that is looking to expand or relocate to the suburbs of Boston. The best way to secure your first location in the US is for you to be prepared to lease. Today's session is an introduction to leasing with how-tos and getting ready, understanding the terminology for leasing, and finding the right location. Our agenda for the session has 5 sections: a background on Action Innovation Network and Cummings Properties, getting ready to lease, including taking an inventory of equipment and space needs, understanding leasing with some basic terminology, finding the right location, including important workforce questions, and then concluding with questions and answers, as Michael said. So let's get started with a background on Action and Cummings Properties. As you know, Action is a network of business incubators throughout New England. 2 of the Action incubator members are clients at Cummings Properties. They are North Shore Innoventures, or NSIV, located in Beverly, and C2I Accelerators, located in Woburn. As part of Action Innovation Network's Plymouth Rock project, Cummings Properties was thrilled to be a partner and provide access to event space, meeting space, conference rooms, and discounted lease arrangements for qualified international companies looking to locate in the US through Action's Plymouth Rock project. Boston is a leader in innovation in the US and in some industries internationally. This next slide provides a more granulated picture of where the industry clusters for innovation in and around Boston resides. This map overlaps well with where Cummings Properties facilities are located in the greater Boston area. A little bit about us. We are an owner and operator of a variety of property types, including office, lab, light manufacturing, and warehousing. We are located in 11 communities north and west of Boston, with a leadership position in Woburn and Beverly. C2I is located in the Woburn cluster, which has great access to 2 major expressways. NSIV is located in a dominant North Shore location with leading life science companies. On the next slide, I want to show you a range of the properties that we own in Woburn and Beverly. The Woburn cluster is home to companies such as Medtronic, OCO, Gentuity, which was formerly Lixie Nextcode, and Sophion Biosciences. This is a picture of Trade Center 128. It's our flagship office and lab building located right on a major expressway that enjoys easy highway access and sign visibility. It is the US home to Mitsubishi Electronics, which is headquartered in Japan, Sophion, which is headquartered in Denmark, and the recent US headquarter pick from Minovia Therapeutics from Israel. This is Cummings Center, which is a reuse project of the original US shoe manufacturing campus, once the international leader in shoe-making machines. Today is home to over 60 life science companies and many more technology and innovation companies in clean tech and medical devices. It truly is a mix of tenants, from 200 square feet to 50,000 square feet, including office, lab, light manufacturing, and retail clients, including restaurants, childcare, and medical doctors. This is a picture of 48 Denham Ridge, located on our newest campus in Beverly. We are seeking innovative and technology-focused clients. Microline Surgical, Prova US headquarters, it's a French company, and Harmonic Drive, headquartered in Japan, call this campus home. The area is robust with international life science leaders, including QIAGEN, which is at our Cummings Center location, New England Biolabs, Cell Signaling, Danaher, Medtronics, Abiomed, and High Res Biosciences. In closing about us at Cummings Properties, we are a full-service property owner and operator with in-house leasing, design, and construction. We like to say we provide one-stop shopping for your real estate needs. So whether you need a custom lab or want to take as-is office space, we can meet your needs. And I hope you will take us up on the Plymouth Rock project lease opportunities. So what do you need to do to get ready to start leasing space in the US? This section, I'm going to talk about taking an inventory of your equipment and space needs, knowing your property and space types, and finish with an overview of occupancy costs. The first step to getting ready is to take an inventory of your equipment. Make sure that you know the requirements to operate your equipment in the US, such as electrical, plumbing, and gas requirements. Also, inventory your materials. Know what is considered flammable or hazardous. Once you have this, you can do some due diligence and be prepared to talk about the requirements for HVAC, which is heating, ventilating, and air conditioning your space, as well as how much power you will need and the corresponding business permits or licensing you will need to achieve to operate your business. The next step is to take an inventory of your space needs. COVID-19 has affected these numbers, and they are in flux for many companies today. The rule of thumb for office space use until the pandemic was to have approximately 100 square feet per person, and in some international locations, 80 to 90 square feet per person was used. Today, this number appears to be increasing to closer to 150 square feet per person. Be also mindful to assess how your work flows. In this example, note that there is a distinct separation in front of the house or operations more client-facing, marketing and business development, and the scientific or research space. The client in this instance counted out the number of offices, conference rooms, and how much bench space they needed per scientist. They included a good amount of growth plans baked into their assumptions for space. It can be a challenge to determine your space requirements, particularly if your company is in a position to grow. Open floor plans with shared workspaces can mean more flexibility and efficient use of space. If you expect to grow, inquire in advance whether your property owner will guarantee to accommodate growth with an expansion guarantee, which is the ability to grow within the property without moving your business elsewhere. Lastly, every business is unique, so seek out a customized floor plan for your specific requirements. Next, know your ABCs of property types. Are you looking for a premier building or more functional space? There are three classes of office space: Class A, B, and C, as defined by BOMA, the International Building Owners and Managers Association. Class A is a high-end building offering quality finishes, state-of-the-art systems, and prime locations. They usually command the highest rent and provide premier finishes and amenities. These properties are well maintained with rents at the top of the range of the market. Class B is a functional building with more modest rental rates and basic finishes and systems. These properties are practical options for businesses looking for comfortable space that does not need to make a statement. Class C buildings tend to offer functional space with no frills. These buildings may be located in less desirable areas and are often older structures. The following slides are a few examples of the interiors of a variety of property types. So most people are familiar with an office or retail space. The picture in the upper corner is an open floor plan office space located in an office building. The upper right picture is a lab space in a single-story building, and the bottom is one of a surgical center or medical client. Some people are also may be familiar with industrial and retail. I get two frequent questions from new leasing clients. The first is, what is flex space? Flex space provides the flexibility to have a co-located office space with a light assembly, manufacturing, or warehouse space in one location. The space is more clear height to accommodate racking of inventory or a bioreactor, but it's not as high as bulk warehouse space with significant racking vertically for a client like Amazon. The second question for new leasing clients is, what are my other monthly costs outside of the quoted rental rate? This is an important question because it gets the details of creating a budget for your occupancy costs. In the next section, I'm going to spend some time on the definitions or terminology for the first four items that contribute to occupancy costs, which are rent, CAM, or common area maintenance, insurance, and real estate taxes. Utilities vary greatly by use and are generally separately metered and provided by utility providers such as National Grid. Water and sewer are typically provided by your local municipalities or towns and cities. 6 and 7 on the list on the slide are italic because the designing and building of space requires talents of a variety of experts, including architects, engineers, and construction providers, including carpenters and HVAC technicians, to name a few. Our model at Cummings Properties is to include design services, engineering, construction, and permitting for the construction in our leasing proposals. Our one-stop shop approach can make the sometimes daunting process of leasing and designing a lab or manufacturing space easy for business owners and can alleviate substantial costs normally associated with contracting for separate design, engineering, and construction services. Other considerations to think about beyond the four walls. What will it take to make my lease space feel like home for our business? Will you need the help of an outside furniture vendor or design firm? What are the fees to have a business permit issued? Be prepared for other considerations for your use and occupancy. For example, laboratory users will need to consider contracting with a hazardous waste removal service. Another example, food production companies will need to think about pest control. In this section, I'm going to go over some basic leasing terminology used in the US, including definitions of rental rates, triple net versus full service, leasable versus usable square footage, and some general leasing terminology. Rental rates are quoted either as triple net or full service. Effective rental rates include four basic components: a base rate, real estate taxes, building insurance, and mechanical and structural maintenance, or what is commonly referred to as common area maintenance. A triple net lease quotes only the base rate net of the other three expenses. A full service lease quotes an effective rental rate or gross rate, including all four components. Be mindful to make an apples to apples comparison when shopping rates. In evaluating rental costs, examine all terms and think beyond cost per square foot to understand the full picture for expenses. Many rental rates are listed as triple net. This common rental structure essentially passes the cost of ownership along to tenants by requiring them to pay on a pro rata basis all building insurance, real estate taxes, and common area maintenance charges. In addition to base rent, the additional pass-through expenses associated with a triple net lease could add anywhere from $6 to $20 per square foot on top of the advertised rate. Other property owners, including ourselves, may offer gross or modified gross leases, which will include some or all of these expenses in the rate. In addition to insurance charges and real estate taxes, it is important to understand who is responsible for costs related to building structure maintenance, landscaping, items like snow plowing, and property management services. Okay, let's talk about the difference between usable and leasable square footage. Usable square footage is the actual office space you occupy from wall to wall. In the example, the dark gray area is the actual occupied office suite. The common area of the building is the restrooms, the shared hallways, the elevators, stairwells. Think about cafeterias, lobbies, or if you have a fitness center in the building. In the slide example, the area with the hash mark is the common area. Most leases are based on the leasable square footage, which is the usable square footage plus a fraction of the building's shared space. A common area factor is used to calculate this fraction of the building's shared space. The common area factor, also known as load factor, is the ratio of the total building square footage to the usable area. This factor is used to fairly distribute the cost of operating the entire building's common area on a proportionate share of each business's suite. This is the calculation used to reimburse property owners for operating the cost of the common area. Now let's go over some basic leasing terminology. Term. In addition to the rental rate determination, think about how long of a horizon you have for your business plans. Leases generally run 1, 3, 5, or 10 years. A longer lease term often translates to more favorable terms or favorable rates. Determine your comfort level in committing to short or long term. Many property owners offer 1 to 3 year leases for as a space. The more construction, the more a property owner is looking for more term typically. Leasehold improvements are commonly known as TIs. This is the specialized construction a building owner makes to rental space in order to configure the space for the needs of that particular tenant. TI allowances are budgeted payments to cover the cost of the construction. Many times these are dollars paid by a property owner to a third party to improve the space to the tenant's requirements. Then there's another term, turnkey. This phrase comes from property owners who also have construction services and in-house design and construction staff to deliver a new space to a client's fully built out specifications. The keys, in essence, are turned over for a complete renovation or new building construction. We've gone through getting ready and understanding some terms around leasing space. Now let's turn to finding the right location in Boston. The strength of the Boston economy has resulted in a hot commercial real estate market. Good news for property owners, but a potential challenge for business owners, even during COVID-19. Tight availability can lead to higher costs per square foot, but that is not the only factor to consider when choosing a home for your business. In considering space for your business, think about the needs of your employees and where the talent pool is. Are they young urban dwellers without cars and desiring amenities within walking distance, or are they part of a more experienced workforce that has migrated to the suburbs to purchase homes in proximity to quality schools? The transportation challenges of the region have caused many workers to reevaluate how they spend their time and the number of hours required for commuting or even getting onto a train for commuting due to COVID. In Greater Boston, traffic woes into Boston-Cambridge are a major concern for the business community. A transportation survey from Mass Bio found that 60% of respondents would change jobs for a better commute. So it's important to consider, is your potential location conveniently located for your staff? The suburbs are an attractive option for many businesses, offering more affordable lease rates and pricing as low as 1/3 the rates of downtown Boston and Cambridge. Proximity to major expressway corridors like I-93 or I-95, which is the ring road around Boston, is also a benefit. Each submarket is different in terms of types of businesses that create the highest demand for space. Just as an example, I have slides from CBRE on the office and lab market in Cambridge versus suburban locations. Note that lab space in Cambridge, as of June of this year, commands as much as $100 per square foot with very little vacancy. While in suburban markets, where Woburn and Beverly, which are suburban North Cluster located locations, these suburban market rates can be as little as 1/3 of the Cambridge prices. And there's more availability to grow in place. That completes my agenda for the session, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Michelle, for that informative presentation. So we have some questions. What are some reasons why a business would choose a triple net lease over a full service lease?
It's a good question. I don't think it's a matter of choosing triple net over a gross lease. At the end of the day, you get to the same rental rates. You just have to be mindful that when you are talking about a triple net rate with a property owner, that you get the details on what they are charging for real estate taxes, common area maintenance, and the insurance piece, that you get that information. And sometimes when people are looking at rental rates, they don't realize that there's a difference between triple net and gross, and you need to ask that question.
Okay, next question. Can you provide an example of how the common area factor is used in a lease?
So typically, it's the common area factor is the difference between usable and leasable square feet. Let's see, on one of the slides, we can go back. So this slide, can you see this slide? Back at premise usable versus leasable square footage. This common area factor is down at the bottom of the slide. So what you usually see is people ask questions about, well, how many square feet is along this wall for benching? And you get a number, you get a square footage for the usable square feet within the walls. When you apply the common area factor, it gets you to a leasable square footage. Does that answer the question?
Okay.
You think?
Okay, so in this example, the common area factor is 1.1363. So that would factor into calculations for the total leasable square footage.
Right. You would take the usable square footage and multiply it by the common area factor to get your leasable square footage.
Okay. Okay. And next question, how does the expansion process for rapidly growing companies work?
Can you repeat that? You broke up a little bit on my end.
How does the expansion process for rapidly growing companies work?
So when a company is rapidly expanding, but they don't have the budget day one, many landlords will offer an expansion guarantee in the lease, and there's a variety of ways to go about it. Some landlords will say, okay, if you give me notice within a period of time, I will make available the suite next door, should it be available. Some landlords will say, okay, another way to guarantee your expansion, if you know for sure you're going to expand in the next 3 years, is to lease more space than you need day one, but only charge you for the space that you're using. So either way, it depends on your particular situation and how comfortable you are with your expansion. For us here at Cummings Properties, we provide expansion guarantees, meaning if you are a client, particularly an office client, and you come in and say, you know what, today I only need 3 offices, but my business plan is such that I'm going to need 10 offices in 18 to 24 months. For an office user, it's very easy to say, we'll provide you expansion guarantee. When you're ready to move, we will find you the right space within our business or in our building to accommodate your growth. If you're a lab user with specialized build out, you don't really want to move. You want to stay in your suite and then add on. Property owners that put you into a suite without an expansion guarantee for the next door suite may be binding you into a certain square footage. Whereas expansion guarantee says, okay, I am planning for you to take the suite next door, or I am planning for you to take more space. Okay. And that's why it's important to talk about your expansion requirements with a property owner specifically about what you're thinking about day one.
Okay. All right, thank you. The next question, as a company, if I decide to locate my office outside of the Boston-Cambridge area, how easy would it be to get into Cambridge for business meetings or other business-related matters?
So the anything along the 95 corridor, so I'm going to throw up that map. I can get to it. So anything along the corridor, this corridor here, I'm going to try to put it together. This corridor. So anything along it from what's labeled as Salem around to Woburn to Waltham, Newton around to Quincy, that's 95 or 128, that inner ring, is about a 25-mile distance into the city. And it's very easy to get into the city on a 30 minutes.
Okay. And are there any public transportation option or train options?
There is. So the MBTA, there's 2 services, commuter rail that runs out on spokes along, one of them runs along 93, one of them runs along this strip towards Salem along Route 1, one runs along out towards Framingham. Those are the spokes of the MBTA system. So yes, there are mass transit. Beverly, we have a stop that's walking distance from the Cummings Center that takes you into the city. There is a stop, the Anderson light rail stop in Woburn that's very close to our Woburn cluster. So yes, there are options for taking commuter rail as well into the city.
Okay. And for those buildings that are near those train stations, is there, in addition to, you mentioned one is within walking distance, is there also like some kind of a shuttle service that's available between the building and the train station?
It's a great question. The last mile gap of transportation options. So we did, pre-COVID, we had a shuttle service going on. right now with COVID and a lot of people working from home, there has been a suspension of the Wave shuttle service, but we anticipate that hopefully we'll get back up and running when everyone gets back to work from back into the offices.
Okay.
And not working from home.
Okay. So that connects to the next question. Can you describe overall what changes you're seeing during the pandemic? What are people now looking for in a lease in terms of private rooms or less use of common areas, things like that?
So it's an interesting question. So our architect here, Dave Harris, who we call him our lab guru throughout Cummings properties, he made the comment that as soon as we started to see some lab requirements that there was more requests for closed offices or individual offices versus open space in the plans. And he commented that it's a cycle. He's seen the offices, then to go to open plan, then back to private offices because of the concern that people want to be in their own space when they're in the office because of COVID-19. So we have seen an uptick in private offices. We've also seen an uptick in a little bit more square footage per person. But I will also tell you that in the last 2 weeks, because of, I think maybe going back to school, there's been a lot more people here at Cummings Center. So it's vibrant. There are people here. I would tell you back in April, May, when most people were under lockdown from the governor here in Massachusetts, there were maybe 10 cars in front of Cummings Center. There, that picture of Cummings Center has a lot of cars in front of it. Right here, that parking field in front, maybe were 10 cars. Today, that parking field is pretty occupied. People have come back. So I'd say those are the impacts. You're going to see some changes in floor plans, a little bit more square footage, a little bit more private offices. And we have seen a lot of people looking for individual suites that may be in shared space.
Okay. Have you noticed any changes with companies reconfiguring their open spaces or open layout desk spaces?
So I think a great example is North Shore Ventures is adding more individual offices, but they're also adding individual lab space. I think that not only is COVID sort of driving that change, but also the requirements for, not just HIPAA, but the requirements to keep individual genomic data private has created a need for lab providers, incubator lab providers, to have more individualized labs so that they can lock away the information that they are processing through the genomic codes of somebody. So we are seeing more individual lab requirements versus a shared open lab setup.
Okay. So that's great. So you have the flexibility to accommodate the changing business needs of the clients in terms of how changing business requirements, for example, keeping individual genomic data private, translates into how they need to change their physical office space, and you're able to help them do that.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. We see that more and more. It's interesting that we used to have a couple of incubator labs, meaning 1,000 square feet, 30 feet of lab space. One of them has its own bathroom, one doesn't. But we have seen an uptick in those suites, and I think they're going to be leased very soon. So we may find ourselves in a position where incubator lab or small, private, you can lock your door lab space is in demand throughout the greater Boston area. There's not a lot of it.
Right, because most of the lab space has been, shared lab space, which is very open and multiple, multiple companies using it usually. So That's an interesting new development, is the use of actually individualized lab space per company.
Yeah, I think it's smart for all the incubators to think about that and how the regulations are affecting how they do their business, and that translates in how does their facility get built, which we can accommodate. We're happy to be one of those providers to support that change.
And so you mentioned that you have in-house design and construction services. Can you give an example of how you work with a client that has a need for all of those services to build out a space?
Yeah, sure. So typically someone inquires about a lab or a manufacturing space that has some specific requirements. It could be a space, an office user as well. And we sit down with them and talk about, well, what is your business doing in its facilities? How are they using the facilities? For a lab client, we ask them specifically, is it BL1, BL2? How much benching are you looking for? What are you doing? What's the science within your space? Do you have a lot of ice, water requirements? Do you have PCR requirements? How can we build out the space to accommodate the different workflows and things that you're doing in the space? Once we know that, and they fill out a hazardous materials survey and they fill out something about their equipment that they want to be using, then our in-house architect and our designer will lay out a plan and put it on CAD and put it on a plan, a schematic plan to share with the client, the prospective client. And then we have a discussion. Do you think this works? Where do you think, what is it missing? And we have a back and forth a bit. And then after that, we price it. And we then put forward a proposal. Here's the lease. This is how much the rate will be. There may be, particularly in a lab requirement, specialized build out that we will ask the client to share in those expenses. And it really depends on what it is. If it's a specialized build out, we'd like to talk to them about what that requirement is and figure out how to work together to get that requirement done. And then from there, we write a lease.
Okay. Okay, that's helpful to paint that picture. One of the terms you mentioned in your presentation was TI allowances, and how do those factor into that process?
So we don't provide tenant allowances because we are a full service provider, meaning when we quote our rental rates, we include turnkeying the space for what we considered standard build out. For us, standard build out is office space. So within our space, we don't provide a tenant improvement allowance. Other landlords say, I have a vanilla shell, and you business go out and hire a designer, hire a contractor, and I will quote your rate, and then I will give you money to go hire a designer and a general contractor to build out your space. So I'll give you an example. The rental rate is $20 a square foot. For me, when I quote that to somebody, that includes building out their space. Particularly at Dunham Ridge, if you were to take an office space and you had a need for 5,000 feet, we would quote you the rate and build it out with some limitations. It's standard build out for our standard finishes, and it includes delivering the space per a schematic plan that we agree upon. Other landlords say, here is my building, my raw space. I'm going to quote you $20 a square foot, but I'm going to give you $10 a square foot to cover your design and general contracting requirements. You still have to pay me $20 a square foot at the end of the day, but I'm going to give you the money and you can go hire your own design construction firm. And that's the tenant allowance, is that money, that $10 a square foot that they give that tenant to go out and hire their own designer and architect and or general contractor.
Okay. Okay, but you with you providing that service in-house, you're able to take advantage of the efficiencies of scale. You know the building, and you work with many clients to customize their space. So there's efficiencies of scale there.
Yes. So we have all the expertise, design, engineering, construction, to build out a wide variety of spaces. We are a company that's been in business for 50 years, and we have built out, as I mentioned, multiple lab clients up at Cummings Center, including we have a couple that do GMP facilities or have GMP facilities. It's a wide range. We have clean tech companies, people who are in the cutting edge of solar production and storage, chemical companies, internet companies, software companies. It's a wide variety of people who use space to light manufacture, people who use space for technology like fintech and computer science, and or business services. And the medical community. We do have a healthy medical clientele as well.
Okay. Okay, another question. Are you seeing more interest in companies moving to the suburbs? So
what I've heard, and this is just not, this is out there on the internet on many webinars, is that the city of Boston is recording a record number of sublease opportunities, historic at 1.5 million square feet. That square footage, a combination of it will head out to the suburbs, and a combination will perhaps not renew, depending on the changes in their format and how they are either digitizing their format or coming out to the suburbs. A good chunk of it, probably about 80% of it, is coming out to the suburbs in a variety of satellite locations. We've seen an uptick in investment on the North Shore, as well as companies seeking either office space or lab manufacturing space out on the suburban rings.
Okay. So that's an interesting trend. And so could you talk a little bit about the philanthropic group within Cummings Properties, and what the mission there is, and how that group helps businesses?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you for acknowledging that. So Cummings Properties powers Cummings Foundation. What does that mean? That Cummings Foundation is one of the largest corporate donors, grantors in Massachusetts. We give away $25 million a year in giving to the communities in which we own property. So that's the communities of Suffolk, Middlesex, and Essex County, primarily, where we own properties. And the giving is powered by the rental stream of the properties. The properties are owned by Cummings Foundation. And so in turn, when someone rents with us, our net rental stream provides the charitable giving for the grantees. And the grant recipients are wide-ranging. The main focus is health and human services and education. But we also have those that support the overall ecosystems that qualify for grant money as well. Being a non-for-profit, you have to be a 501c3 to qualify as a grantee. So thank you, Michael, for reminding me of that.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, thank you for that. So it's in the form of grants that are given to qualified grantees. Some examples: nonprofits, education, health and human services, and they need to. Okay. So that's yeah. So that's a really great way that you're giving back to the communities.
Yes, that we like to say that we build communities, and we have been for 50 years. Not only within the business communities that we have within our portfolio of clients, but also out in the greater communities where we give back through the Cummings Foundation. And we're really proud of that. I'm proud to be part of that.
Yeah, that's really a great initiative, and and you're really making a big impact with being one of the largest grant foundations in the state. Okay, are there any additional questions? Okay. Okay, I don't see any additional questions. Thank you, Michelle, for that very informative presentation and for taking the time to address a number of questions. So very, very helpful.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate the time, and it's great to work with you at Action Innovation Network. Michael, Joan, Mercedes, thank you for what you do for the ecosystem here throughout New England.
Thank you, Michelle.
Yes, thank you for joining us today. And thank you, everyone, for joining the webinar today. We hope you found this helpful. Please watch our website for future webinars at actionnewengland.org. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.